Welcome to the Channeling Spirit Virtual Summit, a platform where we have invited Spirit to share messages, healings, and transmissions with all of us. May this energetic experience help us to expand our awareness and to deepen the relationship we have with our higher self, our spiritual team, and with Source, however we define them. Thank you for being here and for taking part in this amazing journey. Hello and welcome to the Channeling Spirit Virtual Summit. My name is Daniel Martinez Stahl. This is Season 7, Episode 8, and we are with Maria Vasquez. I was just sharing with her and those that were joining us live before the recording started. My energy is a little unsettled right now, but it feels very fun and playful. And this is one of the things that I get with Maria is that I get very playful and joking with her. So we always have amazing conversations. I love having her not only join us, but I love the conversations that she and I have. It's always so enriching and empowering and invigorating. And so I personally am very connected to Mother Earth and the natural realm. So I very much align with the energies that Maria plays with and connects with and speaks with and communicates with, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm always very much interested in what's going to come forward. For those of you that have been with me in the past, I have about 60 different gemstones in front of me. Bumblebee Jasper is the one that stood out for me to grab at this moment. And throughout the call, if you see me looking down, it's because something else is calling to be a part of the conversation at that time. And it happens without me being aware of it. I do it. And then I'm like, oh, I'm holding a different stone right now. How cool is that? And so enough about me kind of chatting about Maria. I will let her introduce herself to you guys, and then we will go from there.
Oh, Daniel, thank you so much for having me. I mean, my levels of gratitude go so deep. First, how we met, right, from Scott DeTamble's class, Life Between Lives, and all of those pieces. And then for you stepping into this and providing a platform to have these soulful conversations, it's so important. And for all of the sweet souls who've gathered here live and those who are going to listen in on the replay, it's such an honor to have these conversations because we're at a pivotal time on the planet and in each of our own evolution where it's time for us to remember these pieces. So I'm Maria Vasquez. I'm a multisensory animal and nature intuitive, and I work with the energetics, right, of what's going on, what's presenting, and it allows me to lift the veil between what's happening in the 3D and what's happening energetically. And I love helping you unpack your intuitive backpack because that's the starting point, right? That's when things really start to get interesting. And it's wonderful that I can have these communications with the animals, with the plants, with the trees, and the rocks, whom we'll be talking about today. But it's more important that you remember that you can do this, right? As human beings, we are inherently wired to do this. It's not about one person being special or another one not being special. It's about remembering, and the rocks can help us remember. So I am delighted to be talking about the rocks as messengers, to be talking about rocks, frequencies, and consciousness, because this helps us access that ancient wisdom that we have just forgotten in our modern day time.
You know, there's something that you said there that really jumped out at me, which is this idea of being special or not being special, that there isn't anything different from us to someone else. And what I am learning within my own journey is the distinction between the power and the majestic essence that I have and what I have to offer, which is unique and powerful, but it doesn't make me any better than anybody else. So the specialty of who we are is more about the uniqueness of what we are and what we're here to do and what we're here to play with, and how we experience life, how we create and solve situations, and the power behind that makes me different than Anna Maria, which makes me special, but it doesn't make me special in a better way than Anna Maria. It just makes me special in a unique way. So there's, again, just that language element, is that we are all special and we are all incredibly powerful and we are all uniquely gifted. And that's what makes us special, but it doesn't make us better than anybody else, because they are equally as special as we are.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, and I love hanging out in that spot where science and spirituality intersect, right? Because my lower mind loves that information, it loves that knowledge, it loves the data, where my higher self is like, let's go play, and the energy, right? Let's remember this unity consciousness. And what's fun, because is I do have personally a very skeptical mind. It's got all sorts of things to say about freaking everything, right? All the time. And so it's constantly that tending to the mind and the thought flow that's there. And, like a little puppy, a little naughty puppy that you're trying to train, bringing it back lovingly, right? How are we, bringing our mind back, bringing ourselves back into that oneness. And what I found is the natural realm, the rocks especially, are here to help us ground into that wisdom, to remember and even source us in ways, when we're looking at the ancients, they had a knowingness that we can't explain, how they understood how things work, right? Because the science for us right now is just barely there to be able to explain with their tools and their measuring equipment. They've been able to validate that rocks really are these electromagnetic beings. And if we dig down even deeper into that, they are little pieces of Mama Earth, right? That have broken off, just like us, right? Like we are little pieces of divine consciousness that have taken another form from, in another form than the divine. And so it's this constant fractal of one thing pointing back to this other piece. And so all of these rocks are these smaller aspects, but nonetheless potent, of that Mama Earth energy. And I wanted to make the distinction because we have so many beautiful teachers out there who are teaching about crystals, right? And I am talking specifically about rocks, or distinctly about rocks, which is different than crystals. And I feel like the crystal teachers out there are doing a phenomenal job, and I don't want to get in there. I don't want to jump in that water. That's outside my wheelhouse. But the rocks, man, it's phenomenal. And so just a brief distinction, right? Crystals, I just happen to have one here, right? Like everybody else on the call, we all got our collection of crystals and rocks. So crystals are when you have a mineral that presents in the that repeating crystalline structure. We're going to end up with, right, this is a clear quartz crystal. Daniel's got a whole garden of crystals in front of him, and each of them represent a different crystalline structure of a mineral or some kind of combination of minerals. Now, when we are looking at rocks, right, granite, schist, gneiss, sarsen, I mean, there's a bajillion, I'm not going to list them all, but when we're talking about rocks, pebbles, rocks, boulders, we're looking at an aggregate of minerals. Now, sometimes there are rocks that do have crystalline structures within them, or, on the inside. But overall, when we're talking about the rocks, we're talking about that aggregate of minerals coming together in one form or another, a pebble, a stone, a rock. And the folks who are going to resonate the most, everybody will find this fascinating because we're not taught this stuff. We don't talk about this. Well, in my home, we talk about this. We have conversations like this all the time. But in the home that I grew up in, we didn't talk like this. And my mom was constantly saying, take those rocks out of your pockets. If that ends up in my washing machine, you're going to get it, right? So that piece about our ancient ancestors, they had a knowingness. and they built rock circles. They built different rock structures that today they're able to measure, right, and see that they are electromagnetic beings, meaning that they're putting out frequencies, specific frequencies at specific intervals and calling in. This is amazing, right? They're like little radio towers, really, and they depend, right? Some of them are doing it by the second, and some of them it's over a span of 36 hours. And when they play the playback back of the data, it looks like it's breathing. Holy crap, right? The first time I had witnessed that, it blew my mind. I was like, rocks are absolutely, this consciousness, this breathing, this life force that is on their own kind of frequency, their own harmonics. And that's really what they have to do with. They work. It's not like the animals. It's not like the trees. It's very distinct, right? No more special, no less special. Just like I have a feeling our whole conversation will be circling back to some of the first points that we made. But they each have their own aspects. And what's important about this, right? Like we think it wasn't that our ancestors were just throwing a pile of stones together and saying, this is a sacred space. Although we could absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But what they were doing is they were feeling into the energy of the earth herself and feeling in these spots. Now we know, right, from science and research, where earth energy was coming together. It was coalescing in a way. You may be familiar with ley lines. And when we look at different temples and different sacred sites around the world, we can see that they absolutely are. First of all, anything that is more modern, and when I'm talking more modern, even within the last couple thousand years, but when they excavate underneath that, they see that these sacred sites are built on top of older, more ancient sacred sites. There was something else that drew people to that spot. There was an understanding of the earth energy, the power that acts as an amplifier for what we're going to do in that spot to allow us to come together as a human, this infinite being embodied as a human, come into this sacred space that is being supported by the harmonics and the frequencies and allowing us to have a transformative experience. And even deeper than that, what they have found is that, let's talk stone circle, that when you create a stone circle, not only is this a very specific flavor of electromagnetic energy that's going on, it's also shielding and sheltering someone. So when I'm standing in the middle of my medicine wheel, I have created a shield that protects me from the outside local energy, right? Because just frequencies in general can wreak havoc on our bodies and bring us into the forgetfulness of who we are, especially in our modern day, where we've got all sorts of EMFs affecting us. And so when we work with rocks, when our ancestors worked with rock circles, that's one of the more basic structures that they were doing. They were actually creating a space that would shelter and shield the human body. And when you're in there, right, you're not experiencing the same energy as outside of the circle. You have moved out of the mundane into multidimensional, right? You've moved into another space. And here's what's interesting about this. When that human body is in that sheltered space, it allows the brain to release different chemicals, one of them being DMT, which they barely understand it, but they know that it's responsible for mystical experiences that we have. So working with the rocks is a way not only to step into, because they're not just these things in our backdrop, they're actually, right, as the indigenous say, all of my relations. These are our kin, right? That's my rock kin. Those are my tree kin. Those are the animal kin, all of my relations. And if we as humans would remember to live that well, there'd be a lot less terrifying headlines out there, because despite how everyone looks different, they're all of my relations. And for us to remember that, and as time went on, we moved from these stone circles into the temple building, on and on and on. But we don't have to. I mean, it's great to travel to sacred sites. It's absolutely phenomenal. But we can create this anywhere. We can create our own, even starting with one, I call it a touchstone, one rock, one stone that we're working with, that when we come into contact with it or when we recall it in our mind, it acts as a touchstone to activate that intention that we put into it, that we're putting into it at the time, all the way to different configurations according to sacred geometry of creating more elaborate stone circles in our home, in our living spaces, outside. But there are all of these ways that we can connect with the rocks that our ancient ancestors, not only did they know, they did it. And for some reason, when we moved out of the woods, right, as a whole, we began that amnesia and we began to forget. And all of the synthetic things, right? It's so nice, right? Because I can control the temperature, I can control the light, I can, watch anything I want at any moment in my synthetic environment. But there's a lot of things in our synthetic environment that actually act as neuro scramblers in our brain that makes it harder for us to pick up those subtle energies. And we need to pick up on those subtle energies when we're trying to receive guidance, when we're trying to receive those downloads, when we're trying to stay in our alignment. So there's so much, that working with the rocks can remind us about our own journey.
I'm reminded of something that you shared with us during one of our conversations after the past life training that we did. We talked once a month for a while, and during one of those conversations, this was not attributed to you. This was Shannon. And Shannon
even
and
more
I,
brilliant. I love
even
that.
more brilliant, right? Even more special.
Even more special.
So Shannon and I went back and helped Scott in the training afterwards. We were kind of demos and we kind of talked about our experience and stuff. And in that call, she said something that has stayed with me ever since. And I was just reminded to share this, which is, she was just channeling some energy, and she just said, every day, even if it's just for a moment, just allow yourself to connect with some aspect of nature, whatever that might be. Have it be a plant in your house, have it be a blade of grass out your window, have it be a bug that you see, whatever it is, just allow yourself to connect with that aspect of nature, even if it's just for a moment each day. And the power of that is incredible. It's incredible. And so we don't need to be living in some gorgeous mountainside in a forest with access to all kinds of nature, like some of us do, but some of us don't. And, it's really easy for us to say, oh, I live in a city, or I'm not really close to nature. You're never far from nature. You are never far from nature. Regardless of where you are living, there's always something that you can connect to. Even if you become aware of the fact that, oh, I am breathing an air, which is a part of nature. Even that, just being conscious of connecting with nature, with any aspect, is just powerful. And it aligns you in incredible ways. Even if you are in a rock garden, like a city, or, like myself, where, I never leave my place because I'm always here taking care of my mom. But you see me looking out to the side, I've got a bush. For those of you that are new to me, I've got a bush that kind of blocks the window from the street. And so I've got this incredible view of another world that happens that people out there have no idea, because I'm seeing all of the birds and all the interplay with the birds underneath the bushes, underneath the protection of the bush. It's incredible what happens underneath the protection of a bush. People have no idea. And so if you see me looking out the window, it's because a bird is out there and it's catching my interest, and I'm curious to see who it is and what they're doing. And so I'm constantly looking out because the birds are catching my interest. And so we do what we can when we connect with nature, and we don't need to go out to nature to connect with nature. We can connect with nature even in our imagination. Hey, if I'm stuck in a meeting, or if I'm in a business and I can't really connect with nature, I can just take a moment and just go in my imagination. Or let me just go to my favorite waterfall, go to my beach, go to my forest, whatever it is that we associate with, we can go there in our imagination. And that is equally as powerful as if we are physically there ourselves.
Yeah, it's so profound, and it again, the ripples from that one piece. Shannon channels absolute brilliance all the time, and so it's no surprise to me, right, that came through. And there's a couple different pieces, or two pieces, that I want to touch on. The first is, I've gotten that from the natural realm as well, especially if you're in self-doubt, if you're in any kind of self-doubt, right? Lack of clarity, just doubting yourself. You got to get in nature, and that, you got to get outside. It could mean the energetic way, going through your imagination, which we downplay, right? Oh, just look at a picture of this. But I have to tell you that through all of this, like you said, I do have access to nature. I mean, it's right there. I live on the edge of a national forest, like 1 million acres of, natural realm brilliance there. But something that really humbled me is when they explained, because I said, well, what about, most of our planet lives in these urban areas, in these concrete jungles. And so what does that mean for our connection? And it was explained to me that if you're living in an area where, you got to put in the effort to get out into nature, that you're actually working on an advanced level, and you're being called to work more energetically, to be working those energetic intuitive muscles, right? And so I was like, wait a second, does this mean I'm in the slow class, right? Because I physically have the trees there, the animals, all of those. They didn't really answer me on that one, but it is this piece where, and every time I teach these things, it's not just do it with the physical piece. I always add that part of have an energetic variation to that, right? It's great when I can go outside and walk the physical medicine wheel, but I live at 8,500 feet in Colorado, right? And so there's some times that I'm not going out there. I'm just not going to do that, because I do like my comfy, cozy creature comforts. And so I have learned to also have an energetic version of the different practices that I do, and that is working a very special energetic muscle for us. So again, it's a different kind of special. Maybe we should have called this, we're all special. We're all a different kind of special, because that's what keeps coming back. Not one is not better than the other. We have our own judgments, our own conclusions about it. But the truth is, it's about, are you making that time to connect? And the reason that you make the time to connect is because it brings you back into the remembrance. So again, science and spirituality, when we are out in nature, our body is flooded with negative ions that help on so many levels, especially on cellular level, for our body to remember the balance. But one thing that we know about the brain is it doesn't necessarily know when you are physically doing something or when you are imagining something, right? There's plenty of those neuroscience studies showing that. And so imagine what you can be flooding your field with, what you can be calling into your field when you're connecting with nature, whether you're physically there sitting on a stone, or whether you are imagining yourself sitting on a stone, or you've pulled up a picture of a beautiful, rock circle or a mountain. We have to stop dismissing ourselves. We have to stop diminishing our experience, because each one is special in its own way. The uniqueness that comes through, and the potency. We're the only ones putting the kink in the flow. It's not anything else. It's not our physical circumstances. It is our dismissal of the potency of this energy and this experience.
Yeah. And, Shannon mentioned something here, which I want to kind of speak to as well. My sister, in decorating her deck, which is netted and kind of protected so that we don't get bothered by flying and various creatures, she bought a artificial tree with flowers, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And I was sitting there looking at it and saying, how is that different than a real tree with flowers? I'm inspired by it. And, Shannon was talking about how you can connect with nature by looking at the print of flowers that Anna Maria is sitting on, or the stones that are behind her head, whether they're real or artificial, they still have a resonance to them that aligns you with nature. And so, there's this aspect that we don't need to limit our access and our abilities. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is, most of us that are in this conversation are aware of the conversation regarding the world going into a fifth dimension, and that we are in the process of transitioning with her. Now, different people will use dimensions in different ways, and I tend to align with the description that Sarah Landon gives through the council, the council gives through Sarah Landon, which is, the third dimension is the dimension of separation, where we feel and experience lack and limitation because we feel ourselves being separate from things that are around us. We're separate from money, we're separate from each other, we're separate from nature, we're separate from success, we're separate from abundance, we're separate from the universe. The fourth dimension is the dimension of transformation, where we start to recognize that there's things that we can actively do to improve the quality of our experience. And most of us that are on this call have been living in that space and playing in that space for probably decades. And then what we're stepping into is what's referred to as the fifth dimension, which is the dimension of love, of alignment, of oneness, where we recognize and we create our human experience knowing that we are the energy of all that is. So there is this oneness and this co-creation, this effortless co-creation with life itself that is living through us, consciously aware of that experience, as opposed to now where life is living through us and most of the time we're not conscious of that and we resist it innocently. The sixth dimension is the dimension of imagination. I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry,
or
what?
not innocently sometimes.
Or not innocently sometimes. And so the sixth dimension is the dimension of imagination. And imagination is equally as real. The sixth dimension is equally as real as every other dimension. And so when we play with our imagination, we are creating form. We are playing in reality. We're just playing in form and in a different reality than the reality that we are, experiencing as we look at each other and listen to each other and hold stones in our hands. But it is equally as real. And that's something that, we can all kind of play with. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is Anna Maria mentioned ley lines. Again, in a conversation with Shannon, I forget if it was during a podcast episode or if it was an episode during one of the CSVS seasons. I think it was a member of her team was talking about how it is now a time for us to empower ley lines with our intention, with our focus, with our love, with our energy. And they talked about how we can use ley lines or water to do this. And so I think I mentioned this last time that you and I spoke. If it's raining out, I envision Reiki symbols up in the sky that the rain is falling through, that is being infused with love and energy of life, more so than it already has. And that water will literally eventually flood the entire world. So rain in my place right now will eventually make it down to Australia through the air and through vapors and through the oceans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ley lines is Anna Maria. Do you want to, before we go into the description of ley lines, the other thing that Shannon's channel mentioned, which I want to include, was when I asked, I am not the kind of person where I can walk out and I can feel a ley line underneath my feet. Some people can, and some people use dowsing rods. I once had the opportunity to play with a dowsing rod, and it was in a circle, really fascinating, in someone's house in Vermont, a friend of a friend. in their house, somebody was one of these energy sensitive people, and he said, this property has an energy circle without the stones. And he brought out dowsing rods, and he literally walked. He said, this is the center point, and he put the dowsing rod in the center, and the dowsing rod started spinning in a circle. And then he walked out of the center line by about 5 feet or about 2 meters. And then he walked towards one direction, and the dowsing rods opened up and they aligned with the line. Fascinating. And then he would keep on walking forward, and the dowsing rods then started going forward again. And then eventually, as he was walking around the circle around the center point, the dowsing rods again would line up in this line. It was absolutely fascinating. And I held the dowsing rod, and I did that myself with the dowsing rods, and it did it for me. I didn't move them. They kind of moved on their own. It was the coolest thing. And so the reason that I'm mentioning this is because, again, I'm not the kind of person that walks out and feels this energy. And so I asked Shannon's channel, and I said, hey, for those of us that aren't able to recognize these things, how can we find them? And they said something that was brilliant. And I think most people don't realize this. They said, your human body is a ley line. And I went, oh, that's cool. That's so cool. I am a ley line. And so, having said that, Anna Maria, over to you. What is a ley line?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So the mainstream collective says that ley lines are made up lines of distinction that have been drawn between historical sites and sacred sites. They essentially say it's made up, right? Now, what I know to be true is that just like in our bodies, if you've ever heard of acupuncture, right? We've got different energy lines in our body, right? And when they do acupuncture, it's to open up or restore flow, or, regulate the flow of energy in one way or another. So the earth herself, right, Gaia, she has ley lines, energy lines, energy. So, right, like if we cut ourselves, blood will come out, right? But it's not just like, it's just a sack of blood, right? There are veins, there are arteries, there are these things that feed every single cell in our body, that blood, that energy, that life force energy presenting as blood through the body. So the energy is everywhere on the earth, but there are channels where the energy flows. And again, let me back up. There are some people who can just feel them when they're standing there, like, oh, this is a ley line, or this is a this or that. And the truth is, our body, right, our physical body, we are nature, first and foremost. We forget that we are nature. Again, once we left the woods, we forgot that we were nature. And all of a sudden, it's like all that stuff out there is nature, and we are humans. We are biologically classified as animals, first of all. And so we are nature. And the composition of our body, it is made up of the same elements that are in the earth, right? The quartz and the silica that are in rocks, that mirrors back our bones. All the minerals in the earth are mirrored back in our structure, our physical structure. And then when you look at the blood in our body, that iron, that is also in the earth. So when we connect to the earth, and I'm in any way, but let's say physically, right? If we're outside, barefoot on the earth, or sitting on a rock, we are completing a circuit. Because all of those minerals in our body are superconductors. They're all conductors of that energy. And so when we intentionally and or physically or energetically connect with the earth, we are completing the circuit. And our bodies are inherently designed to pick up those subtle energy shifts in the earth. Now, when we're sitting on a rock, right, think about this. Our tailbone is in connection with that stone. And so we've got this information superhighway that we call our spinal cord. that is delivering information, and it goes up to this little transponder we have here in our skull called our brain, that then is able to decipher that information, send out signals, call in signals. It's a big deal. We so diminish ourselves as just human beings, but it is a phenomenal design designed to connect in time and time again with that earth energy, to bring us back into remembrance of who we truly be. And so while some of us, right, like if I'm just walking around the land, especially if I'm with other people and hanging out and I'm not, necessarily in my practice, I may or may not notice a ley line that I'm crossing of sorts. If I'm tuning in to check a space, right, for a client or myself or whatever, then I'm going to have a discernment. But again, if I'm just standing on a spot, I've been to some sacred sites and some spots where they've measured it, and I didn't necessarily feel it. Now, it doesn't mean that it wasn't affecting my body at, that micro level, but I may not have felt it. That's where tools like divining rods can come in to play. I love playing with dowsing rods. They're so fun. It's amazing. And so that energy that's flowing through us is being detected by that pendulum, by that divining rod, and then it reacts to that shift in energy so that you can see a tangible shift, that something is happening here. And it's fun. And the truth is, right, as we shift the relationship we have with our physical bodies, we begin to realize what phenomenal divination tools they truly be, because we don't really need to have divining rods. It's fun, right? Like my little skeptical brain is like, give me data. Let me see. How do you know that? Cite your sources. But the truth is, when you're standing in that knowingness, you have the knowingness of that. And so just like, circling back with the ley lines, just like we have those spots, those channels in our body, it's also happening in the earth. And again, this points back to that unity consciousness and that fractals. Everything mirrors back everything else, no matter which direction we go, up, out, in, all of these places are showing that. And that intention, we forget. Intention is our human superpower. And again, we dismiss it all the time. But it's so important. It's so important. That's the name of my business, right? Intention training, because that piece of intention, that is the springboard to everything. I resonate the most with the natural realm. So that's what I focus on. But all paths, right, lead to the oneness. So whether again, your line of speakers points to this. So wherever you're feeling like you resonate, go follow that. What lights you up? What is sparking your curiosity? That's the way. And, you may be a dabbler in each of the areas, or you might just feel like, no, this is my jam, right? Like animals, nature, this is my jam. Whatever it is, we again, in our uniqueness, in our specialness, we want to pay attention to those subtle shifts that we experience when we're hearing something, when we're around certain people, when we're doing certain activities, because it's pointing to energy moving or energy not moving.
So I want to get back to this idea of what is a ley line and the power that we are as humans. And so a ley line, the way that I would describe it, is simply it's a focus of energy. It's a focal point of energy that is in movement. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, mentioned at some point, it was Maitland, who's a spirit that works with Jamie Butler, and she just channeled through Samuel last night. So Maitland was talking to us at some point, and she said, humans don't realize that you guys are conduits of energy for Mother Earth. And so energy is coming from the universe through us and down into Earth. We are literally one of the species that helps to empower Earth with her energy. And so we are literally conduits of energy for Earth. That is one of the relationships that we have with Gaia. Now, we're not the only species that does it, but we are naturally a very important species that does it. And so again, we start to play with this idea of the role that we have with nature and the relationship that we have with Gaia, that it's symbiotic. It is a beautiful synergy where she needs us and we need her, and so it's this relationship where we can partner and we can co-create more beautifully the more conscious we are of our relationship with ourselves and with the natural realm. So hopefully that helps answer your question, Anne-Marie.
And I think about also the piece, right? Our ancient ancestors would sometimes call them spirit lines or spirit roads. And the Aboriginals talk about that. It's almost like their transponder, their pineal gland, whatever physical structure it is, locks them into it. And they would go and they would know that this was the pilgrimage route to take. And it's that being tuned in. It's so phenomenal. And again, there's so much more going on than meets the eye. And when we open up to that possibility, we start to really have some phenomenal experiences that we can't, or nor do we have to be able to explain with the 3D wisdom, knowledge, or knowingness. When you have one of those amazing experiences from just an insight, an aha, all the way to a full body transformation, you don't need any data. It's irrelevant in your experience at that point. It might be nice to have, but we don't need that. So I like to satisfy both hemispheres of my brain and work from both sides.
There's an element where most people that are familiar with me, my intellect is a big part of who I am, and I love figuring out how things work and understanding them and having these models that describe experiences which are only very superficial and only touch at the reality of what's happening behind the scenes. But I love my models nonetheless. And I love the idea that Anne-Marie is inviting us to recognize, which is our intention is the foundation of everything. And speaking of rocks and crystals, many people talk about how you need to put them out into the world to cleanse them, put them under the sun, put them in the moon, put them under water, put them in salt. And the reality is that you can always just simply use your own intention and clear the energy help the energy to clear the energy of this, help the gemstone or the crystal or the rock by giving it your intention of allowing it to clear any unwanted, unuseful, unnecessary energy that it might have collected along the way. I like the ceremony of putting it under the moonlight. I prefer the moonlight to the sunlight just because, again, sunlight can be very strong, and some gemstones like like amethyst or rose quartz and things that are colored that are from underground, the sun can bleach them. And so over time, if you leave them on the windowsill, they're going to lose their color. And so I tend not to put them in sun for too long. If I do, it'll be the end of the day sun where it's softer. And I only do it for like 5-10 minutes. But I tend to prefer the moonlight. But I like the ceremony of it. But I've also learned that I don't need to do that. So when I get a new gemstone that crosses the threshold of my apartment, my intention already has energy flowing through my apartment that cleanses energy as it walks through it. And I've empowered the spirit of my apartment to maintain that. So I walked in and I said, okay, apartment, thank you for allowing us the honor of being here. Let's create something where you're working with Gaia and you're flowing energy constantly. And I created figure 8 models, 3 of them that go in different directions. And there's like a flow of energy going up and down the doorways so that as something crosses through it, it's like a waterfall. It just cleanses as you walk through it. And this is all my intention. This is all my imagination. And I can do the same thing with the gemstones. When I get a gemstone, I invite it. All right, now that you're here, thank you for being here. Let's release anything that you've picked up along the way that isn't going to serve you or me, and the intention that we are going to have as we play together in this co-creation that we're playing in. And then when I have time, eventually I take it out to the moonlight or I take it out to a sunset. And so our intention is the only thing we ever need. Really, really powerful. Heidi Sue adds here, I have heard and tested with my own dowsing rods that dogs typically lay on positive ley lines, whereas cats will lay on the quote unquote disruptive ley lines. Again, positive and negative and disruptive, these words can be quite misperceived. Positive, negative isn't good or bad. They're just different energies. Talk about true furry alchemists, speaking of the cats laying on the disruptive ley lines. So when we intentionally position certain rocks that would realign the ley lines on our properties or rooms. Wait, that's a question mark. Let's see if I can read this. So when we intentionally position certain rocks that would realign the ley lines on our properties or rooms, question mark. I did this with 4 rose quartz in my bedroom in each of the corners. Okay, I understand the question. Let me rephrase that. So with your intention, can you position rocks or gemstones to help to balance out the energy flow within a space? Have it be a room, have it be a house, have it be a property. Over to you.
Absolutely. That goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, where when our ancestors set up those rock circles, right, it created a shield. It changed the energetic field within the space within those stones. We've taken it, to a different level of understanding with grid, like crystal grids, right? People will use that. You can also do that with rocks and stones. And I teach based off of some of those grids, the number of stones. So again, if you're working with 9 stones, a configuration of 9 stones, whether it's within one room or around your house, or a special space that you go to sit within, that would be helping you shift the energy. It goes even beyond redirecting ley lines. That is one way that people will work with it, but it also goes to create very specific energy. So if you're looking to have some kind of spiritual transformation or those high level shifts in your life, that you would want to be working with a 9 stone configuration. If you're looking for, the basic balance in life and in your health, in your spiritual energy, in your mental balance, a 4 stone system may help. That may be most appropriate. Or like I said, you may just want 1 stone that helps you remember and come back to whatever intention it is that you're setting. Or again, if you're setting up a particular room, right, we want to have a restful space. There are things that we can do, and we all need to lean into it, right? Like, it's not about doing it wrong, right? Because people will be like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about any of that stuff. Well, now what? I'm just going to do it wrong. There is no doing it wrong. Again, your intention is the first and foremost piece. Yes, we can learn more and we can take that knowledge, and then that will amplify the positive benefits. But it's not like, oh, I put the rock in the wrong space, now I screwed it all to hell and my life is falling apart. It's not like that at all. It is anytime we're consciously connecting, right? I'm connecting with that other being, that stone being, and I'm creating a vortex. I'm creating an amplification of the energy. So whatever it is I'm looking to release, whatever it is I'm looking to call in for myself, and or what the rock itself is looking to call into its energy field, that's phenomenal. And then we can know, right? This is where the head can come in, where we can bring more knowledge, more insight, more wisdom, and layer it on top of that to create an even bigger benefit. But it's not about doing it right or doing it wrong or any of those pieces. I oftentimes think about that piece about feeling the energy. When I had first moved to this land where I'm at now, and I was walking it, right? I mean, I know the trees very intimately, and I was being called to work with the rocks more, and I had been in some intensive training with the rock beings and receiving different information and guidance. And I walked to a space on the land that I'd walked by, I don't know, hundreds of times before, and something stopped me in my tracks. And I looked and I saw it as like an overlay like a holographic overlay on the reality. I saw a medicine wheel in this clearing in the trees. Now, I couldn't physically see that, right? But I saw it as a projection from my mind's eye. And so I went back and I told, James, my Zen cowboy, hey, this spot wants to be a medicine wheel. And he was so jazzed, right? He was like, great. It's that great balance between that divine feminine energy that's in the listening and the receiving, and then the divine masculine that takes that inspired information and puts it into inspired action. So there he is with the wheelbarrow, right? And the rocks, like, let's do this. Let's go activate and make a medicine wheel. And when we went to lay the 4 directional stones, I went to go place the first one, and I looked, and there was a stone in the ground already, and it was sunken into the ground. And so I start looking around, and I see that there's already 4 directional stones in the ground. Now, they were off their directions by just a few degrees, but I sat there for a second. I was like, oh, I misunderstood that. It's not that this spot wants to be a medicine wheel. This spot already is a medicine wheel. It already was a medicine wheel. And what we know about the history of this land where we live is that the Utes had trails that went back along through here on their way to the hot springs, right? Which where they would winter sometimes because, hello, hot springs, and that they did ceremony all along the way. And so we were able to check it, right? We got out our compasses, and sure enough, a couple of the stones were spot on for the directions. I want to say it was the west stone and the north stone. The east stone and the south stone had sunken in a little bit and slid. So we stuck with those because those original stones are already activated on a high divine level that I really wanted to honor. So when you look at our medicine wheel from like a bird's eye view, it's a little oblong, not as much of a like a true circle, but we really wanted to honor those stones and the ancestors who had come before us and activated that circle. So there are different ways that we will perceive that energy. And the biggest thing, right, you can't do it right or wrong other than ignoring it, right? And there still is some divine peace to us being in oblivion about anything, but that take the next step, right? I always talk about it like a cosmic scavenger hunt. You get one clue and you follow it, and then you go to the next one, and then you get another clue, and maybe that one has you course correct a little bit, but you're not going to go wrong when you're tuning into that deep internal energy. And that story, the medicine wheel story, is in my book, Nature. And I'm sure I skipped some other parts about it, but the main part was about feeling it, seemingly getting one message and then realizing, oh, my interpretation was a little bit off, but we still got to the same point that we needed to be in. So it's phenomenal. And the magic, right? The magic that we create when we just stay in our listening and we follow that. And then when we collaborate with these natural realm allies, right? Like the rocks and their harmonics and their frequencies, we have such access to profound wisdom and guidance. And it helps to amplify it, right? It's just like working with the dowsing rods. It's not that the rod itself is doing anything other than giving us a visual of a shift in the energy. And so when we're working with those rocks, actually the rocks are doing a lot, and they're creating these spaces for us to have these insights, to have these mystical experiences, and where it is a natural part of how we move through our life. And that's what really happens is once we move those rock beings from some kind of natural backdrop, right? Like I'm looking at Mount Princeton, which is a 14,000 foot mountain here. And that mountain itself has a divinity to itself. It has this consciousness. And when we think about mountains, right, like that's a big ass rock. If we think about it like that, right, it's Mama Earth, he's popped up in this way, and it's a special space where the element of earth, right, as that earth mass that has gotten pushed up in the way that it's pushed up, meets that element of air in a very special way. And the alchemy, let's go back to the word that was used earlier, that comes through in that. And when I am, if I'm just a tourist going, oh, those mountains are pretty, that's one thing, right? But when I'm connecting in with them in a conscious way and honoring them, I can receive in such a profound way. And like I said, I live where there's like a whole, right along the Rocky Mountains, right along the Continental Divide, where there's a string of these mountains. And there's places where we're driving in the valley. And I call it like my cosmic headphones, right? So I got a big mountain over here. I got another big mountain over there. And I'm being, like in a vibrational car wash, right? I'm going through that and I'm being bathed in that information. So there are very specific drives that we will do when I'm in the listening for something, whether it's in our own personal life or whether I'm being called to create something in my sacred livelihood where I'm needing more information, where I'm needing the instruction, where I'm needing the guidance from the natural world. All of these different ways for that to come through, whether it's the big rock beams of a mountain, whether it's a sit stone, right? Meaning a stone that I can sit on, whether it's rock circles, whether it's having one rock in my hand or a pocket full of rocks. There are these different ways for us to amplify that life force energy and allow us to receive amazing insights and downloads.
There's something that I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit on in reference to Heidi's question. Most of us in this community recognize that, tiger eye has a certain characteristic and rose quartz has a certain characteristic and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can always use our intention and ask any stone to help us with anything that we are asking them to play with. It just so happens that some stones, again, arguably, the theory goes that some stones are better at certain things than others. They're more inclined and they have a preference towards something, just like we would as personalities. And gemstones have similar personalities. When one puts stones in a configuration, a grid of some sort, like corners of the house, corners of the bed, a pyramid in the bed where you got 4 on the corners, 1 above, 1 below. When you create these kind of grids, the gemstones communicate between themselves and it amplifies their energy. And it also allows them to communicate. And so I've created a power of 9 ring of gemstones that I've taken as, for me, these are the foundational 9 power stones. And I create these rings and I have them on the corners of my house and I have them on the corners of my bed. I actually have the top and bottom too. And I let them work with my energy, and my intention is for them to turn on and turn off as they need, because they have certain personalities and characteristics between these 9 gemstones. Within them, I include gemstones that will cleanse the energy automatically because they have self-cleansing properties. And then there's others like quartz and tourmaline, black tourmaline, that empower. And so I've got stones that are empowering the cleansing and the cleansing that's happening. And so it's a self-sustaining environment. And so we can set these things with our intentions and we can put them and they will communicate. And again, I will always say this, I'm a very lazy practitioner. I will leave things to do their thing. So my apartment does what it does. I've set my intentions and then it does what it does. And when it needs help, it will remind me. And it will remind me by me remembering, oh, hey, I haven't thought about this in a while. Let me become conscious of this again. And so my gemstones are in charge of balancing the energy in my house, in my apartment, in my bed. And whatever I need at that point in time, they will determine between themselves, oh, you know what? We need a little bit less amethyst. We need a little bit more quartz. We need a little bit more rose quartz. We need a little bit less, obsidian. They will manage themselves. Again, that's the intention that I've set for them. And so again, our intention really kind of plays with this. Cleansing, selenite is my favorite for cleansing. There's a number of stones that are cleansing stones, but selenite is a wonderful stone for cleansing energy. And I've got different selenites. I've got a heart, and I've got, kind of different shapes. but selenite's probably the most common for cleansing. But I wanted to ask you, Anne-Marie, you talked about crystals and you talked about rocks and minerals and the difference between crystals and rocks. Within the description of rocks, would you consider gemstones to be more crystals or more rocks?
Gemstones are definitely more crystals than rocks.
Okay. Just a
And in
curiosity.
terms, yeah, and right at some point it is semantics and things like that. Whatever you're drawn to, go for that, right? Like I don't teach about crystals in particular, but I have crystals all around, right? We've got everywhere. I mean, I don't think there's a single room I'm trying to think, there's not a single room in our home where we don't have, crystals doing something, right? Or sometimes we're just admiring them. But in terms of rocks that would help with cleansing, so the distinction between the crystals and the rocks, any of what we call the feminine rocks, right? And we're not talking about biological because, right, like where would you even look on a rock to see if it was feminine or masculine, right? And it's not about that kind of feminine, masculine that us humans get so stuck on. It is about the energetics. And so what we want to do is look at what kind of rock is it? How was it created? How was it formed? Those igneous rocks that are formed by fire. Well, that's a very masculine energy. We can feel it, right? Like it's a volcano energy. That's very masculine and moving. It's doing stuff. And then when we look at feminine rocks, we're looking at those that were they came to their beingness. Their process was that through water, right? The limestones, the sandstones, those are going to be the feminine rocks. And what's interesting, what we've learned, and we know too, right, just by looking at the sacred sites. So the masculine rocks are those that created like our solar temples. You're going to find those more masculine rocks like granite being used in there. And then you're also going to find our moon temples or our lunar temples, and they're going to be more of the feminine stones and working with that. But what we've learned, and some of them are all feminine stones, they don't have any masculine stones, but what they found is you either need to have all feminine stones or you can have as many masculine rocks as you want, but you have to have one feminine rock involved to complete the circuit and create the activation. And so you'll see that in these different sacred spaces where you've got these big granite structures and then a sandstone altar or a floor or something like that. And it's interesting because what it reminds us is that potency of the masculine and feminine energy, and that being reflected back, within us and outside of us as well. So I mainly think, and there is a deeper distinction, right? But I always think, okay, if it was created through a process using water, that's going to be more of a feminine stone than intense pressure or intense heat, which you can just feel the difference in that. And at the end of the day, again, the fact that you're collaborating with these beings, that's the most important part. The rest of it is semantics, right? On some level, and you're not going to do it wrong. You're not going to screw it up like, oh my gosh, I didn't know, and all I got are these masculine rocks here. It's okay, right? Like bring in your divine feminine energy to be the activator. There's no right or wrong. It's just be an inspired action.
I'm aware of the time. We have about 20 minutes, give or take. Would the stones like to share any messages with us, given that we are here to talk about them?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling it two ways. If we could take some live questions and do some readings, right? I can see what energy is coming through. Maybe it's a particular rock. Maybe it's something about the rocks that you're needing to hear. And I would also like to go into listening and see what the rocks want to share with us at this point. And that will set people up, to ask their questions or can I have a rock reading, or what do the rock beings want me to know, however we want to do that. But right, everything is energy. And as soon as Daniel connects with me and says, hey, season 7's coming up. Are you interested? Right? Like I tune in and I'm like, am I going to get a yes? Am I going to get a no? Comes through right away with a yes, but I wasn't told what we were going to talk about. Right, Daniel? Like he had to at some point prod me and be like, we're going to go live here soon. Do you have a topic? Do you know? And it's that piece where I'm in the trust enough that I know it's divinely what's supposed to come through. That doesn't always align with marketing calendars. I've learned over the decade plus doing this, and my human has had to really get used to that. But as soon as I knew that it was the rock beings who were coming through and that they were ready, they start working me, right? And it creates a container. And so I know that they are working me to allow something to come through. And so if everyone just wants to take a couple deep breaths. And what we're doing is we're connecting, right, with that element of air, that life force energy through the form of air, the breath, to bring it into our body. And it's like all of these pieces, just like our body, our physical composition mirrors that of the earth and creates the circuit, completes the circuit, activates the circuit. When we're bringing in that life force energy, that's another level of that. That's another layer. And so often we're holding our breath, or we're shallow breathing. And what we're needing to do is really connect in, because that life force energy is so important. And when we're holding our breath, when we're breathing shallowly, it is putting a kink in the hose and we're not getting that flow. So when we do these deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, and I like to use sound to help move that energy that gets stuck. What it's doing, we're moving from that headspace of figuring things out, and we're dropping down into that heart space. And as we connect to that heart space, right, there's not even anything you have to do than breathe. It just happens. And then when we bring our conscious intent, here's that word again, intention, to that breath, those two together, right? It's like an alchemy is happening, and it activates that heart coherence. And you can go to heartmath.org and look into what heart coherence is, but it's a big deal. And it's an explanation also of what's really happening in the physical that connects us to those interdimensional realms and to that higher consciousness. So we drop into the heart space. Our breath with our intent activates that heart coherence. Activating that heart coherence creates the bridge into the quantum field. The quantum field is our jumping off point for everything that we're looking to play with, to be with, to remember about ourselves, because that's where the infinite possibilities lie. Whereas from our 3D perspective, we have very limited or few possibilities. So as we're taking those breaths, it is connecting us to all that is. And from this space is where we can connect with everything, right? We're wanting to connect with a rock, we're wanting to connect with a tree, we're wanting to connect with an animal, an angel, whatever it is. That's the route you take, right? That's going to get you there. And so as we're in that space, that's when that connection can begin to happen. They're already starting to talk to me. And so the way that I channel is very conversational. It is very much like a newscaster has an earpiece in their ear and they get the information. That's how it is for me. It's like, and sometimes I'll even like lean in, right? Like I want to hear that a little bit more. And so they're reminding me to present some of the practical pieces here. So how do we connect with a rock, right? So first we get into that heart space and we're breathing, and then what, right? So then what? Then we want to pay attention to our intuitive energy channels, which are our clairs, right? Our vision, whether it's in our inner mind, whether, again, if you're seeing an outside projection, like will happen for me often, whether we're hearing something in our mind's ear, whether we're hearing something in the physical, when you're sitting with a rock or in a rock circle, your attention may be drawn somewhere, right? Or something might come into your mind, that information that drops in, right? That claircognizance, that knowingness, that insight, those downloads that come in. You may have a physical experience where you're feeling energy or a sensation or an emotion, right? That's our clairsentience. So we use those intuitive channels to bring in the information that that stone being, that rock being, that rock circle, or one rock in our pocket, whatever it is helping to bring through, is helping for us to remember. And this piece that has been coming through the strongest is about remembering. And the rock beings are amazing at helping us remember. And they're also these poster children for change. And yet when we look at a rock, we're like, what? It's just a rock. It's just sitting there. What do you mean it's a poster child for change? But the truth is that rock just sitting there out, in this field that I'm looking at, has been in its process for millions of years. And this piece about us being at peace with change. What do we need more than anything? As humans, we resist change so much, and yet the only constant in life is change. And so rocks, the rock beings, the stone people, they help us step into that space where we surrender to the change and allow that to take place. And that ability to ground in, and that ability to remember that there's so much more going on than meets the eye. Because again, if we can't even see the divinity in the rocks, and to see that I am that, right? That mountain, that stone, that pile of rocks, if we can't see and remember that, of course we're not going to see and remember that this other human being who looks differently than us, that they are one with us. And this is what's at the core of what we're up against right now, is remembering that unity consciousness, that we are all one. And the working with the rock beings allows us to stand in the truth of our knowingness and ground into that truth, that universal truth. It's not truth with a little t, it's truth with a capital T. And to ground ourselves in and realize that just as the stone beings have been with us through the millennia, we also are going through those cycles of change. And here we are at a pivotal point in our human timeline that we have the opportunity to do this different than we've ever done before, and to source and put into motion a bloodless revolution that takes place at the heart and transforms everything within us and outside of us. And this is our opportunity, and it starts with remembering.
So, Anne-Marie, question. How are you for time?
I do need pretty close, like I could probably go 15 minutes over.
Okay. Because you did want to have some ability to kind of get mini readings, and we have a few questions in the chat.
Quick, right? That's the beauty.
Yep.
My readings, I'm known for quick readings. We can get through a whole bunch of people in the time that we have.
So the first one is, can you tell me more about pink jade? This is from Cheryl. She loves that pink stone.
Right. So again, when we're looking at those colors, those are frequencies. And it's interesting because what they're bringing through, like what I thought I should bring through and what they're bringing through, are two very different pieces. So I always defer to the masters in that space. And that piece about the color pink, right? For you to sit with that and contemplate, what does that frequency of pink, what does it look like? Of course it looks pink, right? But what does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it sound like? And so when you are physically in the vicinity of that pink jade, what is taking place for you? And they're of course directing you to that heart space, to that softening. It's calling, this world makes us hard, right? Like, or we succumb to it and we become hard, I should say, because words matter. But that piece and we push that shadow masculine of getting it done, getting it done, getting it done. And the only way that we see that we can get it done is to get her done, right? but that pink jade is reminding you, be in that heart space. There's another way for you to move through the energy, and it all comes through the softening. So I love that a rock would bring through a message about softening.
Next one is Kelly. She has her hand raised. Kelly, do you want to unmute yourself?
Anna Maria, hello. How are you, love? Thank you. That was so powerful when you were just speaking about the rock people. I would love some guidance. I know we always hear from the pack, right? But maybe there's some rock beings or whatever might be coming through around some business initiatives that I'm creating.
Yes. This is they showed right away 5. So a 5-stone configuration. Now, I don't remember if you took the Rocks as Messengers course, but in the module, I can't remember which module it is now, but where we talk about the sacred geometry with the rocks, that is around getting things moving, right? And so 5 rocks, ask permission first. We always want to ask, right? We're very much like toddlers. We're super cute, but we have no manners. And so ask, right? Does this rock want to work with me? And I'm getting you already, right, sister? I already know this much. You already have the rocks. You just have to see which ones want to work with you. And so whether you're placing 5 rocks on the corner of a table, a desk, an altar, whether you're creating, 5 stones that you sit within, it doesn't matter. But bringing your intentions to those 5 rock beings who will source you in, getting things in motion, getting that traction is what I'm feeling. It's interesting that we started talking about traction at the beginning again, and we're, cycling back. But for you, it's about getting that traction moving.
Totally makes sense. Oh my gosh, that sounds so fun too. Thank you so much, Anna Maria.
Absolutely.
Next one is Sherry. Which rock would like to work with me or my cat?
You know what they're showing, actually, and of course, right, with a cat, because what do they want to do? They want to get on top of something, right? Like go up higher. We have these beams in our house that are, high, and the cat loves to walk on that. And I'm seeing they're showing like a rock outcropping. And so this would be more than likely for you and your cat in this situation, an energetic piece. So I would pull up some bluffs, especially bluffs. And naturally the definition of that would be these rock outcroppings along a river. So there's something about the flow of that water. And I'm seeing, right, because I'm originally from Wisconsin, I'm seeing, look up the geography and the geology of Wisconsin dells. It is way over commercialized right now, and like we as humans do with everything. But that actual geology in that area is very potent, with a lot of very feminine limestone rock formations that are happening. And so I would even see, they're showing me you guys visualizing you and your cat sitting on an outcropping of sandstone in that river flow, right? So the river's going around the two of you, and then you've got these beautiful bluffs, these limestone bluffs coming up either side. Talk about superconductor there. So whether you're looking at going deeper in your connection with your cat, if you're looking at any health challenges you or your cat are facing, to come into, again, visualizing this, coming to that meeting space and bringing it there, that is going to create that vortex of energy to assist you guys. So how fun is that? If you could physically get to a spot like that, that'd be great too. But like we've been talking the whole time, you don't need that. You can just visualize it.
Okay, so the next one is, this is from Maria, what does the selenite grid that I've created in my home and around my property want me to know?
They're actually pointing to a few tweaks to the grid as the energy in the surrounding areas has shifted. That there is, the way that they're showing me is, ranchers, they have fencing, right, for that they have to ride the fences and make sure that they're all together, right? Like you're always mending fences out here in the West because, you know, life, the weather, animals, whatever will bring it down. And so there's certain spots in that grid on the perimeter that need a little shoring up. And it's just that attention. And then for you to look at how does that, and this would be based on, I'm actually seeing it on the north side. So this would correlate for you physically. Where is there some shoring up that you are needing physically in your own personal physical field of your body? And this is what I love, that the rocks, well, all the natural realm, they're always pointing back to us. They're always acting as mirrors for what's going on in our own field, in our own mind. So for you to bring your attention to the north side of your selenite grid, but also then do a scan on your physical body of where you're needing some more clearing, and where that lack of clearing is creating physical issues in your body.
So the next one is from Barb. Is there a stone I should be working with in my spiritual practices with the Fae and or animal communication?
Ooh, I love that. And I love that elemental realm. They are so phenomenal. And what they're bringing through is, hold on a second, because there's a couple things that are coming through right away. The first one is green stone, and it's not like a stone that's green. There's an actual stone called green stone, and that's the first one that came through. They're coming into the heart space, right? And anytime we're working with the Fae, the elementals, it is about dropping into that heart space to be transported. The other piece would be, you know, they really do like the shiny things. They do like the colorful things. And so something like pyrite would be another piece to work with in that. But it's almost like if you could even just bring them a little piece of green stone as an offering to go to the next level, right? They're already working with you, but this is just that, you know, offering from the heart that I'm ready to go to the next level. I'm making that intention. I'm setting that intention with us. So definitely greenstone and pyrite are the two that are coming through for you.
Anna Marie, can you double check my intuition? I'm getting a quartz cluster, like the, you know, the little rock, like the little rock that has all the little tiny crystals that kind of shine almost like a glistening. That's what came to me.
They would totally love that.
Excellent. So next one, Anne Marie, you put your hand down. Are you still here?
I'm still here. I was chickening out.
Okay. Do you want to ask a quick question? Just keep it short because we've got to.
Okay. Real short. Yeah, I'm just going through years of some physical issues, physical pain, and I am just weary, exhausted, and some really deep-seated emotional grief about my adult son and daughter, and dipping into like really depression lately. Mm-hmm. So anything that would be helpful.
Yeah, so this is where, you know, the minerals, they source our bodies, right? So the first thing that's coming through actually is magnesium, right? When our brain, from all the stress, right, that we're going through in life, and when things happen, when the shit hits the fan in different ways, our brain chemistry changes, and magnesium is not something that we store other than in our bones, and we don't want our body pulling from our bones, right, to give us those minerals. So I would be looking at a high quality source of magnesium and upping that, right? When you were talking about issues of depression, things like that, so many people will just take like 250 milligrams of magnesium, and for some people that might be great, but the studies are showing that for brain balance things, people are working all the way up to about 2,000 milligrams of magnesium. So I would suggest that you listen in, work with that. But that's the first piece, just to give you the brain balance to help you deal with this stress that's happening. And then as we move into, from the physical body into the multidimensional realms, they're showing me granite. And granite, right? Like, think about granite. It's a very strong stone. It's a very masculine stone. Here you are in the feminine, and it feels very unsupported. And so to call in granite, to bring in that divine masculine energy to shore you up, to ground you. And granite has to do with relationship balancing as well. So relationships on the exterior, right? The adult children, but inner too, right? Like what's going on in you? What does your feminine think about your masculine? What does your masculine think about your feminine? It feels like they're kind of bickering a lot, and we're not going to get anywhere unless they have that union, right? And union doesn't happen when we're in the middle of a fight. So call on that granite energy, the granite stones. I actually see 4 granite stones. Like I was telling Kelly, whether it's 4 little, pebbles that you put on your desktop to remind you, whether you create a circle of 4 stones for you to sit within the middle of, work with that. It's also going to source you in that root and sacral chakra. When we have these issues, right, in life in general, it's very easy to get off our center. And these granite stones are here to source you in standing in your truth and really rooting in and feeling grounded so that you can be that divine elder in the family. And whatever path these other, sweet souls are choosing, for you to stay standing in your truth.
I resonate a lot with that. Thank you so much. And every time Daniel calls your name, I think he's calling me. It's like Anna Marie. I'm like, oh. So
That's
thank you so much, Anna Marie.
Absolutely. Yeah. So much love to you.
For granite.
Mm-mm.
Thank you.
Okay. So IB has 2 parts. I would really like to activate the lower half of my body in order to heighten my grounding abilities. What rocks would help to have in the household so it helps my 2 adolescent children? And then the second part is, our dog has gastrointestinal issues, very sensitive. What can I do or use to heighten permanent healing? Thank you, Anne Maria.
So these, will you read that one more time? Because
Let's take it in 2 parts. First part, I would like to activate the lower half of my body in order to heighten my grounding abilities. What rocks would help to have in the household that would help my 2 adolescent children as well?
Yeah, so the first part there, again, any of the metamorphic rocks. So you can even just say, do a Google search on metamorphic rocks. Those are going to be huge in the grounding energy. Granite is one of those rocks, which we just talked about. And it's interesting because we could, I believe in working smarter, not working harder. And I'm always looking for the energetic shortcuts, right? Like, I feel like Daniel too, right? Like, I totally resonate with that. I am very much like ease and grace. What's the most ease and grace I can bring in here? And so I would very much piggybacking off the last reading that we did with the 4 granite stones. And then they were starting to bring through these things, right? What are we taking for granted, right? For granite, right? To play on those words. And so where are those places that we're not being intentional? And so that 4 granite rocks can source also, right, with the physical healing for your sweet dog. But what we also want to look at, right, is they are mirroring back, our animals are mirroring back what's going on for the collective energy in our homes. And so what is it that you can't digest? What are you having trouble digesting around the energy in your home? And then how can you intentionally within yourself begin to shift that, right? Because we've got all these beings around us who have their own free will, and we're not walking their path. They're walking their path. And the best thing we can do to be a conduit for change is to do our own change and stand in that shifting within ourselves and be that example. It never works to try and preach to other people about what to do, as I'm sure you well know with teenage children, right? Like, or teenagers. It just doesn't. But when we are being the example and we are showing and illustrating what works and doesn't work and how we move through our own life challenges, that is the greatest teacher to those around us. And at the end of the day, right, it's hard to be a prophet in your own land. Look at what we've done all around the world to prophets in our own land. So sometimes that's just part of the contract as well. But if you come into some conscious collaboration with these rocks, it feels like you can work on multiple levels for everyone in the home, including the animals.
Okay. Mary Beth, go ahead. If you want to unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll be quick. And thank you so much, Anna Marie and Daniel. My question is, this year I've made a big shift in my work and it's moving forward, but I feel like I'm moving really fast and things are happening, but then I like lose energy and I'm just like exhausted and I'm almost getting unmotivated because there's no deadline and then the deadlines come and I'm rushing around. So do you have any guidance or any stones or any message?
Yeah, first of all, it feels like, yes, you're definitely in that, that forward momentum. But again, because of your sensitivities and just your big, generous heart, you're taking on other people's energy, right? And so then we're like, we feel something and we know enough to be like, oh, I can shift that. But when it's not ours, right, it's a waste of energy. So the first thing is asking, who does this belong to? Because you're such a sweet, generous of heart soul, you're taking on so many other people's things. And it's like adding to the mental and energetic load. And if you were to just ask, who does this belong to? 3/4 of it isn't even yours, and you could just release it. And then you'd have more energy for those pieces. The second thing is, almost like that divine masculine guardianship. So needing some of those masculine stones, this time it's the igneous rock, and they're showing a very specific one, which is pumice, right? And that is a great one for harmonizing that negative energy. And that goes part and parcel with the taking on of other people's stuff. So I would see you with 3 pumice stones to create that pillar, right, of divine masculine, like a sentinel energy, really sourcing you in staying focused on what's yours, not needing to process other people's stuff, and just giving you a little extra boost in working with the negative energy so that it doesn't get such a hold.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Anna Marie. That was beautiful. It's making me cry. Thank you so much.
We know, right? Like, not, oh, good, I made you cry. But
right. It really resonated. I thought I was over that, taking on other people's stuff, but I guess it's another level.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, it's the residue. It's the next level. We've gotten really good at it where we've gotten good at it. And then we come back around. It's cyclical. It's never linear, right? Like on and off. We come back around. It's the layers again. But this time you have a higher level of consciousness and awareness around that. So and we all have blind spots, right? It's just the nature of this beingness where that happens. So never make yourself wrong. And as long as we're still embodied, there's going to be something, but the way we relate to it, the way we interact with it is different.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next
one is from Pamela. Is there a rock that comes through for me to work with? Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's, I've been talking about specific, this masculine rock, that feminine rock, or this igneous rock, or that metamorphic rock. But for you, it's about river rocks. And when we're looking at river rocks, right, those are all the rocks that have ended up in a riverbed or a lake bed or some kind of water is there. And it's all sorts of different rocks that end up in there. But what happens is they all begin to get shaped, right, and sculpted by that flow of water. So they're actually bringing you 2 things: that element of water to help you restore the flow. Where is it dammed up? Where is it like you are trying to keep a lid on it? These places to kind of bring some more balance in there. and the river rocks. And I'm seeing, instead of, I mean, you can grab some river rocks for sure. Again, ask permission first, see which ones want to work with you. But I'm almost seeing like picture of river rocks for you to just work with that team of river rocks. My course, Rocks as Messengers, there's on that, I don't know, that on the promo image of it says Rocks as Messengers, and behind it is all of these river rocks. And that's what I see you focusing on, like a bed of river rocks to activate that harmonic to source you in restoring that flow.
Next one is from Sally. We've got 4 minutes left. So, and we've got 3 that are here, and people keep on adding more in. So we're going to have to put a stop to these at some point. Sally, my cat Stan has a sore on his belly that won't heal. He has had numerous veterinary visits. What can I do to heal this and also stop him licking it?
2 things. The first would be colloidal silver, which is silver, right? A mineral or a metal in monoatomic suspension. So colloidal silver, you can get it at any health food store. That, like, spraying it on the wound will help. The other thing, and when I talk about essential oils, you have to have a good one. There are so many synthetic ripoffs, and there's more lavender in the world than is actually lavender synthetic chemicals in the world than actual lavender being grown and produced. So I work personally with Young Living, but lavender, I've had my own holistic vets have me work with lavender diluted in a carrier oil like coconut oil and applied directly to the wound because of its antibacterial, viral, all of these amazing healing properties to source with that. So I would actually spray some colloidal silver on it and then dab the diluted lavender on that. And I would be doing that, if you could do that 3 times a day, for you to see that shift. And then also, right, like, what is the wound in your life that just won't heal, right? Like, it's, oh, Jesus, the same thing again, right? Like, why am I up against this again? So look at that, right? Because they're always reflecting back things to us.
Casey, can you make this quick? You need to unmute yourself.
The computer wasn't cooperating. Thank you. Yes, hi, Anne-Marie. I would like to know, is there a crystal or stone that is good for me? And also, I was inspired, you mentioned pyrite. I think I may have seen pyrite in the park near my house. It is a city park. But could that be the big chunks and they have like sparkling little chips? In fact, I found even some smaller pieces that have broken off. And one I was really drawn to, and I brought it home. So, and it has like little silver kind of things. Some of them are smaller and, some are a little bigger throughout it. And it kind of, that's what caught my eye. So I'm wondering, is this really pyrite? And is there a reason I was drawn to it?
So I'm getting that it's not actually pyrite, that it is actually a rock, some kind of a conglomerate that has a lot of mica in it, and mica will create those sparkles too as well. It doesn't matter either way, right? But there is this piece, and yes, all of that can be happening even in a city park. And what it is reflecting back for you are, where are the places that you need to turn up your light so that you're sparkling more, right? Like, there are times that we walk into a room and we're just moved by somebody's energy, right? They don't even say anything. And this is what they're trying to develop within you. This part, they're reminding me, like with fireflies, when one of them lights up, it causes other ones to light up. And this is really a deeper part of your purpose and your flow, is the more that you shine your light, the more that you are encouraging others to shine their light. So definitely, right? Like the rocks you're talking about, they have this giddy, playful energy about them. And they're like, come out and play with us. Come out and play with us. We're so glad we caught your attention. So good on you for catching that and going even deeper with them. And, maybe you don't want to sit in the park and talk to them, although you can do that for sure. But you can even imagine doing it from home, right? Where you may not encounter as much judgment.
I like sitting on them in the park.
Perfect. That's brilliant. That you are absolutely, I would sit there with an intention, because they can source you and bringing through some more information, the insights, the downloads that would be really helpful for you. So get playful. The biggest thing is that those rocks in particular have a very playful energy. So they are going to encourage you to bring more play, more levity, more joy into your life.
That's awesome.
So, Anna Marie, we are at your time limit. So very quickly, I want to say thank you for everything that you've shared. If you're interested in working with Anna Marie, she's offering a program, Messengers as Rocks, Rocks as Messengers. And you can, again, find it on the website. You can link to it. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to reach out to her or to reach to me, and I will connect you with her. There's a few questions that were in the chat just asking for what gemstone would work for me, things like that. But I know that you don't have any more time.
A mini reading. Let me fill in what we can do this way. Everybody will get a reading, whether we were able to get to them or not. And those listening in on the replays, I love these global communities, right? Because we can't all be here at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern or whatever. Some of our Australian friends, right? Or folks in other time zones. So everybody take a deep breath, take 3 deep breaths, in fact, and feel into the question that's on your heart or mind. And I want you to see if you're being drawn to number 1, to number 2, or to number 3. So those of you who are drawn to number 1, you have heart rocks coming through for you. And heart rocks are these rocks that naturally, right, through their process of change, all of a sudden have been broken in ways that create these heart shapes in these rocks. My Zen cowboy is like a magnet for heart rocks. For some reason, I can look and look and look and not find one. He can walk outside and come back with 3, right? But that heart rock is exactly what we would think about this transmission of love and compassion from these rocks to us, for us to take within, right? The one thing that us humans need more than anything else is love and compassion coming to us and going out to others. So those of you who chose number 1, you've got those heart rocks coming through for you. Those of you who chose number 2, you have got soapstone coming through for you. And soapstone is a feminine rock. So I'm grateful that one came through, since I was delinquent in mentioning soapstone earlier when we talked about feminine rocks. And this is a soothing kind of energy that comes from this soapstone. And it helps us with releasing old patterns and habits. So those folks in number 2, let this soapstone help you release those old patterns, really bring a deep healing, not just a surface healing. Those who chose number 3, you've got obsidian energy coming through for you. And obsidian, again, is going to be one of those masculine rocks, right? It's igneous, it's fire formed. And that obsidian is really great at protecting you from that negative energy. And in this case, they're talking about your own negative energy, right? Your own negative thoughts that keep you stuck, that keep you feeling small. So I almost want to even have you picture yourself, wearing some kind of a headdress that has some obsidian stone in there to remind you where are your thoughts, right? Is it love? Is it fear? Because really, there's just love and everything else is fear. So I love that they came through with that mini reading so that everyone could be sourced.
Thank you so much, Anna Marie. Apologies for running a little bit later than you would like. As always, honored to be in your presence and play with you. And if you resonate with Anna Maria, please reach out to her. She also has, she's got books, she's got courses, she's got readings, she's got events, live events, and virtual events. And so there's a lot of work that she does to communicate with people and share her wisdom with others. So please reach out to her. Again, can you tell us what the best way to reach out to you is? Through your website, I imagine?
Yeah, intentiontraining.com is the best way. I can't remember how you have the speaker page set up, but I believe that you have links to my free gift, which is the top 5 ways to connect with animals in nature. There's probably also a link to my book, which is all about nature and having divine experiences, mystical experiences in nature. And then my course on rocks as messengers. And in that course, you can just take the course, right? I believe it's 7 modules plus a live group session that will be coming up here in December. And some great bonuses with some interviews, like with the amazing multi-generational dowser, Maria Wheatley, who really talks about the consciousness of rocks and how amazing that is. And then, of course, there's always the upgrade version, which in this case, with the rock course, it's a private session where I take you through a rock channeled activation journey. It's a healing journey where you will set an intention for your own healing, but also healing for either an ecosystem that is in distress, right? Because when we couple our intentions where it's not just all about us, that's another activation for that healing energy. So super powerful, super potent, whatever way feels right, right? If you're resonating with the messages from the rock beings, if you're like, I'm that person with the pockets full of rocks or the boxes full of rocks or rocks all over the place, I would be honored to help you in unpacking that intuitive backpack and allowing you to step into your truth more and more. And there are multiple ways to do that. And again, Daniel, thank you for creating this space where we can have these conversations and not in hushed tones, right? Like we just get to talk about it and we don't have to be afraid of any judgment. This is a space where we are opening up into new possibilities. So grateful.
So thank you all for being here. I'm going to end the call pretty quickly, given that we have the next call in less than 10 minutes. Heidi Sue is coming up next. Anne Marie, there's a few comments in the chat for you if you've got a chance to read them before I disconnect. Again, I cannot emphasize enough how amazing Anna Maria is. If you guys want to play with her and play with her energy, again, just dropping the seed. Once my mother transitions, I am going to reach out to Anne Maria and we are going to create programs together, which I'm really excited about. She knows that I've told her that we're going to do this and she agrees that it'll be fun to do. So we'll see what comes up. I want to play with wolves and I would love to create an event where we go into like a wolf sanctuary or something where it's not a wild wolf, but we can play with wolves and their energy and we can do kind of conversations and readings and channelings and expansions within that space. And this is one of the things that I'd like to create amongst others. But that's the one that really kind of calls to me. So give me time, let my mother transition, and then we'll be able to create all kinds of fun things. So sorry to keep you on longer. Anna Maria, thank you so much again. Those of you that are listening live, thank you for being here. Those that are listening in the recording, thank you for being here. I will leave you with being spirit, being human, and simply being from love. Thank you for being part of this incredible experience. We hope that this session has inspired a new level of understanding within you, allowing you to expand more easily into the essence of your true self and become an even more powerful alchemist in your own life. We invite you to listen to the session again and again in order to go deeper each time and expand even more. Have it be via the replays or the unlimited access package. If you have enjoyed being part of this event, we invite you to tell your friends so that they can join us in the future. We are grateful that you are here, and we thank you for co-creating this experience with us. Until next time, we leave you with being spirit, being human, and simply being from love.